All right. It being 5:30, a quorum present, the meeting duly posted. I'll call this meeting of the Shelburne Select Board to order and welcome everybody here this stormy evening and hope everyone is safe. The wind is still howling and there is still potential for damage out there. We just had a tree come down out back, even though it's not raining. So just the wind got it. So all that said and done, welcome everybody. And first order of business is the acceptance of the meeting minutes of December 4th.
I have reviewed them. Another great job by Faye. I find no errors. So I would move to accept the minutes as supplied.
I too have reviewed them and found them in good order and will second that. Is there discussion? Hearing none, call this matter a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick?
Aye.
Myself as aye. The motion carries unanimously. Department liaison reports. Moving on to Rick, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, you have the important one tonight with the damages, so I'll whip through this. The Veteran Services District has their next meeting. They meet 2 times a year, sometimes quarterly, but generally 2 times a year. The next one is January 9th, and they will finalize the next budget. So I'll be able to bring that forward after that meeting. Town Hall, we have the accounting software agreement issue is progressing, but Terry has a report on that later. So I'll pass on that. Police, Andrew is here now and actually previously had suggested or asked if it was possible to get a broken down detail on police matters. And it turns out that the new system can do that. We haven't, the chief hasn't got it nailed yet, but it's close. But I got some interesting new figures. The new cruiser, by the way, will be put into service in the next 2 weeks. This is interesting. Documented calls for service police department this year, 2,212 for Buckland, 4,026 for Shelburne. Found that interesting for some reason. I also got a nice report on accidents for the year, which I thought was interesting. Accidents by street. There were only 65 so far this year, interestingly enough. But the Mohawk Trail, as we could probably all guess, is the biggie. There were 24 there. The other 2, second and third place, I thought were interesting as well. Second place with 7 was Bridge Street. And third place, or the third highest, with 6 was Main Street. So I wouldn't have guessed that since they're low speed roads, but again, interesting detail, and I'll share it with you, the files later if you wish. I also got an interesting report on traffic citations. He is learning the system and gave me a nice update. So for the entire calendar year to date, they've had 194 traffic citations issued and $3,445 in fines levied against it. And lastly, real quick, well, are familiar with the fire over in on the Buckland side, opposite Route 2 down from Berkshire East. And the Buckland Fire District Chief, Herb Guyette, sent a nice note over to our chief, police chief, and briefly said, just wanted to reach out and say thank you for your assistance. Jeff Bellinger gave us on Saturday night at the Charlemont Road fire. Jeff assisted in many levels, including using a hose when only 3 firefighters were present, with a hot propane tank, helping with the family and setting up the Red Cross. It's great to see the departments helping each other on many levels. So I think that's a nice tip of the hat, and Shelburne's finest is shining for sure.
That's awesome.
all I have.
Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for joining us. Do you have anything you'd like to report?
Welcome. Yeah, I just have a question for Rick. Is the Shelburne and Buckland 2,000 and 4,000 stats that you cited, are those for the same time period?
Yes, that's for calendar year 2023. January to December 15th, year to date.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Greg, because didn't he officially start as Buckland's chief in July 1st?
Well, yes, but he pulled for both all the way back
Oh,
to
okay.
January 1.
And did he have an explanation for the difference?
I didn't ask. No.
It's
He gave you a lot of detail, and I passed it on. But he's actually broken. If you're talking about just the calls,
yeah.
yeah. No, I didn't specifically ask that. I'll be glad.
Be interesting to know.
I'll be glad to have.
Yeah. Good. No, I don't have anything other than what's on the agenda already.
Okay.
The things that I've been doing are on the agenda.
All right, very good. So today was an active day for the highway department. They were still out about 4 o'clock chasing a few last minute things. There was a flooding at Bartles Ferry and South Shelburne Road where it typically jumps the bank. This is where we're trying to get some hazard mitigation money to resolve this ongoing problem every time there's high water rain and such. Lucy Fisk Road is closed between number 10, number 38. We have had water running over the top of the road, which is extremely unusual. And it washed out the west side of the edge for a little bit, causing it to undermine and be unsafe with no siding. The Beaver Pond on Patton Road in the area of 147 is overflowing, and they're watching that to see if that will be able to stand. Fortunately, the water has stopped raining, so hopefully there'll be less stress on that dam as it goes, but there is a potential there. The pond next to the highway garage is overflowing and was providing 2 to 3 inches of water running across Coleraine Shelburne Road. This has been also an ongoing problem that we need to get something in there to open up the drains and allow for better drainage off of there. However, we're dealing with our neighbor's property, not our property. So it makes it a bit difficult. But that water running across Coleraine Shelburne Road and down towards the duck pond caused about 40 feet of marked washout, leaving some guardrails hanging without any support, totally washed out the footings of the guardrails. Cooper Lane is effectively a disaster with multiple areas of significant damage, with culverts that either became plugged, and these are 12-inch culverts that we had doubled the size during the last round of drainage we did. We increased the size. So, I mean, the 12-inch culverts wasn't able to handle the water coming off of that side of the mountain and overflowed and caused significant washouts for the 1.1 miles of Cooper Lane. And then there was a wee bit of excitement when the flashboards gave away this afternoon around 3:30 and caused a significant whoosh of water coming down the Deerfield River, which I would have loved to have been there to watch, but they got some people a bit nervous, but that's all safe. And it's, again, not uncommon to have that happen during these high water events. So the highway department's been extremely busy chasing those, keeping everybody safe, going around emptying the bleeders, and cleaning out bleeders, and picking up storm damaged trees and things of that nature, as the wind's just blowing flotsam and jetsam all off the trees and onto the road. So just be careful and cautious at driving tonight. It's supposed to be getting better, but still not sure. These things kind of come up quickly on you, and as the ground is so soft, trees can slide and give way at any point. That's all I have. Any questions? All right.
No, I just as you probably have also, the Eversource is sending out a lot of these storm alerts these days. Is that stuff that's being coordinated with Tom
Yes.
Williams or?
Yeah,
Okay.
so this notice came out through Tom. He was the one that's been driving around town monitoring with the highway department. And Tom has been working with them, and he'll be out tomorrow doing post damage. The Eversource updates has been going to Tom. He is aware of them. And just making the rest of the governmental body aware of the Eversources is meeting their needs. I'm unaware of any power outages in Shelburne, but that could be changed at a drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
We have the Casafio yet?
Cafasso.
Cafasso. All right. So why don't we poke on old business proposed solar array for highway barn roof? Terry?
Kay is just coming in.
Oh, we'll hold that thought. Hi, welcome Kay to the Shelburne Select Board meeting. Thank you for joining us. You're here to talk about the Pocket Park preliminary garden design. So would you like to share your thoughts?
Yes, if you're ready, definitely.
We
I'll
are.
just fix my my screen to seeing who's all here. Hi, everyone. And great. Screen share. You are all ahead of time, 5:40. Sounds like you're having a good meeting then.
So far.
Yeah. Well, hi, everyone. I'll just introduce myself briefly. I haven't met everyone in person yet. My name's Kay, and I run educational programs here in Shelburne Falls for this work probably for almost, 18 years now, but in the area about 10 years and maybe a little more. That's my classroom on the right-hand side. And I also conduct design, landscape design, installation, and maintenance every year, probably for about 20 or more properties in the area and sometimes out of the area. And I actually take care of all the gardens along Deerfield Ave. So all the gardens along Deerfield Ave, all different property owners, and the town is one of them currently. And this year, we approached Andrew, and during our courses that we offer, we have training programs where people come for 3 weekends to Shelburne Falls, and they study about landscape design and sustainable landscape design, and also how we are conducting our lifestyles at a time of a climate in crisis. So we really have an ethical mission, an ecological mission, and we offer free designs for the last, I don't know how many years now, 7 or 8 years, we've been offering designs for residents, free design support. And there's at least 12 now in the area in town that we've designed for. And we approached Andrew this year and said, hey, could this site at the Singley lot be a practice area for our students? So Andrew met with us, and this was our first day interviewing. And during the course, during the program, it's usually about 3 months long. We teach all the skills of landscape, site analysis, all different types of considerations for a design site. And we conducted that work throughout the season and then presented. Rick and Andrew were there. It was November 13th, and 2 teams presented 2 different designs for the town of what could be possible at the Singley lot. This is the map that we started with, and you all are familiar with it, with the pavilion on the left-hand side, the diner in the upper left, and then the 3 retaining walls on the right. And the students, some of the goals that we heard Andrew speak about were about creating a very inviting space, almost like a living room, like the town's living room, and also a place to host events, whether it's music or any other type of event. And the challenges of this site, we got to know in terms of the slope and the sight lines and the neighbors and all of that. And the students, they came up with a couple different designs. I'll be sending these to you to look at later, because what I've done is taken the design work that we focused on with our students, focusing on their learning experience. And then I culminated all of that, culminated the feedback from Rick and Andrew, and then also put my own lens on my professional experience into a final design. So this is a preliminary one. I really liked this one. The students on the left here, you'll see that's Bridge Street. And they created this walkway through a line of trees, a little formal entrance to the park, very considerate of the ADA access at the site. And you'll notice in this design that the students moved the retaining walls to the upper right, to the southeast corner there. And the other students did the same thing. Both teams moved the original lowest retaining wall and moved it up. And I'll talk more about that. I also noticed that both teams had placed shrubs and trees along the southern edge, along Memorial Drive there. So I'm not going to go into these designs too much because we're going to focus on the final one that I'm sharing with you today. But one thing that we noticed at this site was that the sight lines were very, very important. I know in the previous, one of my good friends and colleagues had presented a design to the town in the past, and they placed a stage in this lower right corner here. Yet when we were there, everyone tuned into the same observations that if anyone had been looking towards the stage and the sun was shining, we would then be looking into the sunlight in the late afternoon. And Terry, I just saw Josh join, and I said accept because I saw that. Hey, Josh. So we had seen that if anyone were sitting here and a stage were down below, you'd be looking into the sunlight, which is always very uncomfortable. We also noticed that for a musician, if a stage was down here, that's also extremely uncomfortable. I know myself as a performer, if I have my back exposed while I'm presenting to a group of people, it's a very uncomfortable, not very natural experience, and very distracting for everything else that's going on behind the stage. So what we all, this is a number of our staff of instructors and professional designers, are about 5 of us. And all of the students had observed the site and tuned into the view potential of actually utilizing part of the pavilion as the stage area. And that way, we're not having to worry too much about shade or, most importantly, rain. We can protect the musicians, their equipment, or whatever else is happening, a magician or whoever. And the stage located here then opens up the potential for all of the sight lines from a number of different picnic areas throughout the property. It also maintains this view of the river sitting up in the upper right corner there, which is actually quite a nice view that folks tuned into. So this is just a drawing to show you the consideration of the sight lines being important to this design. And I then took all of our work collaboratively with our students, with my staff, meeting with Andrew and Rick. Andrew and I met the other day, and we talked through this iteration of a design that I put together to culminate some of the best ideas and some additional ideas that I'm bringing to the table. This isn't actually the final one. We're going to adjust this a little bit, but if you notice here that these areas where the tiers are, where the retaining walls are, after meeting with Andrew, we looked at shifting them up a little bit more. And I'll just do that again so you can all see, rather than having moved only the lowest one, up a little bit to create an area for a garden. You know, this lower area to have a garden here is just a very natural centerpiece for folks who are sitting on the tiers on the retaining walls. And I just want to somebody tell me, I can't see the time. How many more minutes do I have? I don't know how fast to talk.
And
Thank you. Perfect. So this lower area being a garden area is just a very natural. Everyone had kind of tuned into that, all the students and everyone, and also the need for safety on this southern edge, which is on the right-hand side that we're looking at, because Memorial Drive right there, cars do come and go, and to contain that edge and create that living room feel, establishing a nice row of shrubs, say 3-4 feet wide, same dimensions, maybe 4 feet tall, just creating a little hedge there to contain that for safety. And I'm going to actually zoom into the final drawing that I'm going to present to y'all, and then we'll just focus on that for the rest of the time. After a meeting with Andrew, and we talked about moving these walls up a little bit more, it allows for the sight line. I'll just go back again, thinking about that picnic area and sitting on the tiers, having a great view over to the stage. You know, these 2-3 tiers where you can sit, I think are multifunctional, because if and when there's an event happening in the pavilion, that still has a connection from each place where you're sitting, especially if they get turned just a little bit. If they don't end up getting turned, it still works, yet it would be better, you know, if the 2 lower ones could kind of just take the arc and turn them a bit to have a view. So now the view is over to the stage, but it's also just out to the river when there's nothing happening underneath the pavilion. This one and then I'll show you the final drawing. I'm very excited to show you that. And I'm seeing a typo on the left that I have to fix. But I started to think about your maintenance plan, and with my work, design, installation, and maintenance, I'm always thinking about that. And at first I thought, okay, what about all of these areas being mulched? And the more I thought about that, the more I think if we can protect the trees and keep the trimmers and the weed whackers from damaging the trunks, it might be best to reduce the amount of mulching and weeding that has to happen and have more grass areas under the trees with a little bit of flowers around them for sitting and picnicking on the ground. So originally I drew this up to show you all where you would mulch, but actually in my final design, there's even less mulch and less maintenance. Andrew and I also talked. Andrew, I know you have a really cool idea to put the trees into the center of the retaining walls, and I haven't fully gotten my mind around how to do that. I know that tree wells are usually established when you're trying to protect a tree that's already planted, in my understanding. And so I don't think I would normally put a tree into a tree well on purpose, you know, unless I'm trying to rescue it in some way. But I, you know, if we continue to do design work together, I could, you know, think on this some more. But I landed in the trees just being set up on the fairly flat areas and on the southern side, which you'll see in the final design. So this is the final design, and I'm actually just going to switch my view so I can zoom in just a little bit better. And let's see the final one. And I'll be sending you all of these images so you all can ponder them. And let's see, can you see that drawing? Okay, great. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So this is the final, and I will walk you briefly through this. So if you just kind of go on a little journey with me here, let's see, I had this, I'll take this star and I'll bring this with me as we go through the design. So we're going to walk in through this entrance right off of Bridge Street. And immediately on your right-hand side is the bicycle rack. When Andrew and I met there the other day, Andrew actually biked over and stashed your bike there just naturally. And the students had tuned into that as well. We need a bike rack in Shelburne Falls. We don't have enough of them. I'd never know where to put my bike. And then this welcome sign, a welcome sign here explaining about what's happening in the area, what's
You have
happening
5
on the
minutes.
property. Oh, this is 5 minutes. Thank you so much. With some flowers around that area. And now I just want to bring, oh dear, I'm just going to delete that. Try that one more time, my friends. Okay. So moving into the site, traveling through this line of trees, makes a formal entrance and an invitation to the living room, the town's living room. And on the right here would be native flowering trees, and then the perennial garden down below, which is still going to be on a slight slope, but that's fine. It's meant to be a perennial garden area. The sitting area under these trees is a potential for a little picnic. As you move through on the ADA accessible crushed stone pathway, you could then move over to this area and view the garden, as well as a little sign about some of the native plants in the area or whatever theme you'd like to share about. That would be where we'd be seeing a lot of clustering pollinators. And then the ADA pathway can then make its way over to the pavilion where the reserved area is for musicians. We've moved one of the tables outside beneath a few limbs of trees here. And that would stay outside. So you don't have to move it back and forth all the time. It's pretty, they're pretty heavy. At the back, so the musician would be actually standing, or, you know, whoever type of performer, and they would be looking to the west under the pavilion. So looking towards Deerfield Ave. And behind them, a stand of evergreen trees that are narrow arborvitaes, 3 feet wide, maintaining pathway for access for all of the diners' needs and all their utilities. I'm going to talk fast because I know I don't have a ton of time. Up here, we have our tiered retaining walls. And so this one is moved up slightly. Oh, this thing is not working so well, but this area is moved up slightly, and this as well. And in this drawing, what I've done is actually left 10 feet in between each row for a pop-up tent. So we have races in town, we have Moonlight Magic, we have holiday events, and once in a while, if people want to set up 2 pop-up tents, actually the space would allow for that to happen, which is very cool in my thinking. I also have an underground electric line from the source of electricity, these dotted lines, one leading over to the pavilion for any needs there, and the other leading over to the central point so that the 2 pop-up potential tent areas could access electricity. Say it's Moonlight Magic and there's an event happening that fills in the space. There's also an evergreen tree right near the source of electric.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're at 2 minutes
thank you.
to be respectful to other people
That's
that are
perfect.
coming in.
That's perfect timing for me. The
Um,
last couple, detail. This is an evergreen, which could be also tied into the electric for decorations. Up here in the your upper right-hand corner, Andrew had mentioned there's some really cool stone available that might be brought in as a special stone feature. And
So again,
yeah,
thank you for your
that's it.
explanation of it,
yeah,
and to allow for a few people to make short, brief comments. I'm glad to see Josh and join us with Katie. So they have an idea. You did a marvelous job, and some of your thoughts.
And I just want to say to Katie and Josh, because I think you got here 5 minutes, at least I started 5 minutes early. This work has been a culmination of our student permaculture design, adult students training programs. And then I took their designs and then I brought in my professional eye on all this modified. So it's been a culmination of a whole bunch of people's work. So I'm really excited to be sharing it with y'all. So sorry about to interrupt you there, Robert.
Yeah, so with that said, Terry, is Norman in the waiting room?
He's on.
He is in the meeting.
He is, okay, I just didn't see him. All right, Norman, can you give us at least a few minutes and we'll get back to you? So,
Good.
all right,
Thank you.
excellent. So
Thank you, Kay.
Yeah.
Josh, would you like to
Looks
comment?
beautiful.
And I'll send this to all of you because it's a quick presentation and I'll send all the different iterations and the different phases before this final. So you can just read them and everything's got notes on them. So
Sounds great.
yeah, it seems like a very doable project. Your retaining wall, moving two of them or one of them, the stone, the crushed stone, and then the plants. I mean, it's really going with a low maintenance, low initial cost, given the nature of everything, yet it being, I'm really excited about it.
All right.
Yeah, I think
I should just mention that all the utilities that belong to the restaurant actually are on our property. And so they have permission to keep them there for a limited amount of time, but that runs out at some point. I actually think this is coming January.
well, there's actually plenty of room. There's still 3 to 4 feet in between the wall and the shrubs, or not, they're not shrubs, they're evergreen tall, 12-foot tall evergreen trees. So it can actually work for everyone to be able to still squeeze through that alley there.
Okay. So in my dreams, or I expect that sooner or later those propane tanks will be gone.
Oh, right, that would be nice too. Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And Andrew had also mentioned when I was talking with him about moving the stage location, and I explained why we all recommended that. One idea, I think, Andrew, you said, was even a drop down fabric or something behind the stage when there is an event there. So there's a lot of flexibility.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
so
Bob?
again, please keep it brief.
Yeah, no, I only have a small comment there, but I just wanted to, hey, just give you some props here. I think this is a fabulous design you did. You and your students both did a great job. I really like the way you brought all the ideas together. One, I think, is a small correction, a very minor adjustment, is that I think you've put the power going from where the water location is, and the power actually comes off the pole down there.
Oh, where the street lamp is?
Yeah, that circle you got
Okay.
your cursor on is
Thank
where
you.
where the power comes from.
I can change that. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
But thank you.
And
Rick?
the other thing for
Rick?
anyone who's wondering what these
Rick,
pink
would you like
boxes
to make
are.
comments or questions?
I think we've got a heck of a presentation. The files we all have or will soon. And again, same thing from me. Great job. What a nice evolution to watch it go.
Thank you, Rick. It was so nice to have you and Andrew there as our clients during the educational program, and then to take this to the next phase. I'm happy
All
to
right.
have done that, just brought in a bit more time, my own time. And I'd be happy to help and happy to work with you if you decide you'd like to do that.
So the one thing I noticed was that we shifted from a gathering spot from picnics to a stage performance area, where we went into this very, very clear that we had no interest of booking performances, overseeing performances in that area. And I'm a bit disappointed that, it's a beautiful work. The thoughts are wonderful.
Oh, I'd
But-
love to clarify for you. So the
Because you keep
sitting
referring to
areas-
stage and things of that nature.
yeah,
And so that's, something that you keep talking about, but it's vastly different than what was kind of thought on when going into this.
oh, sure. I can hear how you might think that. Actually, what our focus was on was very much the picnic area. And if you can see in this image, these are the picnic areas underneath these trees, all along this sitting area. And with the final drawing with the trees also on the south side, half of the picnic area is all in shade, which is beautiful. This area at the top under these trees actually are not in the final design because that's not a good spot for trees. But this picnic area the focus is on the picnic area, and The potential of there being an event, when we saw that, it seemed like an important design for some folks. We really wanted to support you to not go to the effort of putting a stage in the wrong spot, or really help you to see the best potential for that for a number of reasons, like I mentioned. Yet the picnic area is truly, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's this whole southern side underneath the trees, even these trees out, along the formal entrance, and then again up above near the diner. So I really see this as like 90%, 95% of the time being a picnic area. And then when you have the versatility, if there's some kind of event, you have that. So these pop-up tents and the stage area, also the musicians who play every Sunday. I mean, this might be a nicer arrangement for them because it is hard to sit at a picnic table and play an instrument. So, and this way it also sets them up so that the interaction between them every Sunday is that passerbys are on the street, they walk through the formal entrance, they sit under a tree, they go.
We get it. We get it.
You get it? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
so I'm going to try to bring this to a close.
great.
Is
So
there
have
any
fun.
final Huh?
Have
Bob, I
fun
do
reviewing all these and
Bob, I do have a few more things that maybe we can take a few minutes after Norm has spoken. That I just want to talk about next steps and follow up and give you my take on the musical element, because I will take responsibility for whatever musical ideas got incorporated into this site. But I think Kay gave you a pretty good overview of how we envisioned it. But I'd like to say a few more things after Norm has had his piece done.
I do appreciate that. Is there any last thoughts, Josh or Katie?
I had to unmute myself. No, I think we're fine for the moment.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Katie, for joining us.
oh, did
Um,
Norman have something or?
No,
Norm's up next.
Oh, got it. Okay. Thanks, Norman, for your patience. I appreciate it.
all right.
Have a
Thank
great night,
you.
everyone. I look forward to talking with you again, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Happy
much.
holidays
Really
to you.
beautiful, Kay. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Josh. Bye.
All right.
Stop share and thank you, Terry, for setting me up as a co-host.
All right. So welcome, Norm. You're here to talk about the director vacancy. So there's been a lot of moving pieces with this and kind of how you got here. Would you like to share with us what's going on and your thoughts and such?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Bob. So Bill Buck stepped down. Initially, he stepped down for, I'm trying to remember the original date. I've kind of lost track of that. And then he agreed to stay on till the end of the year. And then that became untenable. And he basically stepped down last week, I think, shortly after Thanksgiving. We have temporarily have Diana Hardina appointed her interim. I realize we don't really have the power to do that. You do, but so Diana Hardina is currently acting as the interim Cal director. We need someone in that position. And, nobody has applied the entire time that this has been going on. I think, Terry, we originally started advertising in the summer. Am I right about that? I've lost track of when this all began. I think that Bill originally stepped down at the end of August, and we only had one candidate in the initial posting and he thought it was a full-time job. Yeah, it's hard to get somebody to fill that position. Diana will do a wonderful job as we wait to get this done. It would be nice for her to be able to pick up the stipend rather than, since it's not going to Bill, because she will be putting time into it. And that's kind of where we're at. And we're still hoping that someone will step forward and apply for the position. If it doesn't start to happen, we may put some thought into how maybe we can configure this stipended position. I know there are other small positions unfulfilled around town. I get the sense maybe we could do something along those lines. We're not necessarily ready to go that route yet. We've been lucky to have Bill for the number of years we did. And before that, Emily Stone, and before that, Barbara Owen. So that's kind of where we're at. And we're hoping that the board will go ahead and make Diana temporary Cal director until we can find someone. And if we need to do it, if she winds up taking a position, then we'll have her step down from the Recreation Committee. If she wants it. And so this is kind of a trial for her too, to see everything that's involved. I don't know, any questions?
Rick?
So she would in fact step down if the select board feels that that appointment would be appropriate. Because it's a conflict, obviously she can't if she stays on. Okay. Don't have anything else to mention at the
Diana,
moment.
what I will say is Diana is uniquely qualified of the people that are on the rec committee and familiar with it to do this, because she's at the gym a fair amount. She plays basketball there. She's been on the rec committee for years and she knows the gym and she loves the gym. I mean, we did a Cal cleanup with Mary Lou and myself and Diana. Yeah. And so we're lucky that she's willing and has the time to do this for now. Whether, you know, in the end, if she decides that she enjoys doing this, then we would have her officially resign and then look to get somebody else appointed to the Recreation Committee. We wouldn't lose her input because she can't, we have the Cal director attend meetings anyhow. So.
Yes, Andrew.
Just a question for you, Norm. What sort of interim director period were you envisioning for Diana to kind of try this out?
Well, until somebody applies. You know, we're still trying. I don't know. I know that Terry posted it in the newsletter. I had suggested a West County shopper. I don't know if that ever happened, Terry, but
no,
you know,
I thought you said that. I thought you said that Diana was considering becoming the full-time director.
She would if nobody else stepped forward. That's kind of where it's at.
Well, the reason I ask is that I guess maybe a question for you, Terry, since I'm not up on the fine points of committee regulations, but if we were to appoint Diana as interim director for, say, a 3-month period and allow her to retain her status on the committee as it's just sort of a bridge there, would we be running afoul of anything major there, or do you think that's an acceptable sort of interim period at which, you know, at which time Diana would either, you know, yield to another full-time director or another director who got in, or would decide to become director herself or apply for the position herself after 3 months? Does that seem like a reasonable bridge there?
I mean, technically, Mass General Law prohibits someone from serving on a committee and then holding a position that committee supervises. But if the board were willing to bend that for a trial period with an end date, that's entirely up to the board.
You know, and one thing I'll say about, you know, I don't know if we are technically the supervisor of that position. I think actually the select board is. We certainly provide guidance and ask things to be done, but, you know, I know we have input into what this person does, clearly. So,
I mean, the other possibility, if we wanted to just go by the book, is just have Diana resign from the committee and become interim director. And, you know, if she winds up yielding to a different director, then she could be reappointed to the committee.
Well, one caveat there is that if she did resign, I agree with that approach of resigning and then getting back in if she decides not to do it full time. However, if she resigns today, she can't take on the responsibility for 30 more days, according to the law.
Right, but
So,
we were talking about a 3-month interim period.
yeah, without her resigning?
No. If she resigned now and then winds up not applying for the position in 3 months, she could be reappointed to the committee at that point. That's 90 days or,
Right,
Yeah.
but if she resign, my point is, if she resigns today, she can't become the interim for 30 days.
oh.
Is
Well,
that-
I would advocate for bending that proposition just because we're talking about how to get through an interim period here and sort
I
of
agree.
maintain some semblance of the rules. That seems like a minor rule to bend there.
That's not a rule, that's a law. So you
Oh.
you like 10 things, I don't.
All right, whatever.
Yeah, this is a very difficult position to put us in, where we and myself came into this very situation for the Emergency Management Committee, where I had to step down from that position as a member and just be as a visiting person there to attend. And given my health schedule, I thought I met the 30 days pretty well in terms of frequency of before going back. All that said and done, we appreciate the work you've put into this. The next question in regards to this is, was the meeting that you voted to put her in for a temporary position, was that legally posted? Did that get resolved?
So, yeah, it's getting resolved tomorrow night. Unfortunately, we couldn't post it immediately because I found that on Thursday and people had gone home. So we're meeting tomorrow night to reconfirm all our decisions. She had actually before Bill returned, she was actually officially voted on at I think our September meeting. And then Bill returned. And so I had just let Terry know. So she was originally, as an interim basis, that had been officially done. I understand the conundrum the committee is in, but I would encourage the committee, the select board, to just allow this to go through as an interim appointment with the understanding that if we can't find anybody in 3 months, then maybe, she'll officially step down. And if she's interested, and we could arrange for that to happen sooner rather than later if we see no one's applying. Our hope is still that someone will step forward and that we can appoint that person and Diana can just return to her role as a rec committee person. But in the meantime, we do need someone to sort of keep an eye on the gym, and she's really the only person that can do it for us.
Bob?
Yep.
Just here's another potential scenario for how we might go by the book and get this done. So from my understanding, Norm, it's not within the rec committee's purview to appoint her as interim director anyway. That would be our job, right?
I assume so.
So you don't need to worry about posting your meeting because that wouldn't even be on your agenda. That would be on our agenda. So
Right.
my thought is okay, let's go by the 30-day rule or whatever. And we appoint Diana to be interim director for 90 days, 30 days from tonight. And Diana would resign from the committee in order to accept that position. And during the course of the next 30 days, which is the blank spot, you all as a rec committee could ask her as a former member to just keep an eye on things on your behalf, not as a stipended person or an appointee of any kind, but just as a volunteer.
That's about as close as we can get, I think.
How does that sound?
Are you asking me, Andrew?
Well, yeah, I'm asking for your thoughts on whether you think that would fly with you and with Diana, and, you know, if people would be comfortable with that. It's somewhat of a, you know, seat of the pants approach, but given that we have small numbers of people here who know and care about the Cowell Gym, and we have a conflict of interest in regard to our committee regulations, and this is just a proposal for how we get around that conflict of interest and continue to work with the people who know and care about the hall.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, and, you know, from my viewpoint, it's not ideal. It may be the only way we can go forward legally. I don't really see that this actually breaks any rules. I don't know, maybe Rick has a better reading of it if that's what happens. You know, I would like her just to be appointed interim and to just do it as a day-to-day thing until we find someone. Frankly, that's what we're looking for.
Well, I'm a rule bender with you, but I'm not sure my fellow board members
You
are.
know, and because, you know, I mean, Diana, I think still has 2 or 3 years on her term. I'm not looking to have her have to take out papers again next year to just get back into the same position that she's already done. You know, and who knows,
Unfortunately, I
maybe
can't.
someone will step forward tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Unfortunately, I can't. I'm with Rick on terms of bending the rules, and that to me is what Andrew proposed. It's about as close as we're going to be able to get.
So wouldn't that mean you should go back and see if she's willing to accept that? That, as Andrew proposed, because I think that's workable as well, that she officially resigns, does it as a volunteer to keep an eye on the place for 30 days, and then has that interim version start at the end of that, then we're legal. If she decides to accept it after some time, then we can make that happen. And if she decides, or someone else comes forward and she prefers, we can actually, I believe, reappoint her to an unexpired term. Is that not correct? To get her back on?
That was my
Okay.
final question. We can appoint her to, is this an elected or an appointed position?
Elected.
Oh,
Yeah.
but we could appoint her to an unexpired term, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
My understanding from Joe is she could be appointed for the year. Maybe she could be reappointed to her own position. I don't know. I could check with Joe.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So
and the last thought, Bob, is that we could move tonight to appoint Diana as interim director starting 30 days from now, pending her acceptance of these conditions and terms.
Rick?
I'm good with that.
Okay, I'm also good with that.
That way, at least she's got the option, and if she says no, then we're back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
And the rec committee would have to, as a group, kind of take that task on, I would suspect, to get us through until we can find somebody to take the job. And it's tough to call it a job with it being a stipend. But it is definitely a job.
yeah, no, that sounds fine. I
All right,
was,
thank you.
I'm sorry this is such a tangle, but hopefully we can get through this next little period.
So
hopefully someone will apply tomorrow.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
so do you need to make that a motion, Andrew?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion made and seconded for the proposed process of getting Diana Harding as the director of Cal Gym with a resignation for 30 days and then being appointed at that point. Is there further discussion?
I would just amend that to say interim director of Cal
Interim
Gym.
director. Yes,
Yeah.
interim director. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter a vote. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself as I, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Norm, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Bye, Terry.
All right, so we'll jump back into the Pocket Park now for a little bit.
Oh, great. Bob?
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to add a couple of comments to the general presentation. I really liked Kay's presentation. I think she's very thoughtful and has a good sense of the site there. In terms of the music issue, we had sort of left that hanging as a thought in the last, funding round iterations of it, recognizing that there were questions and bridges to be crossed. And in the preliminary sketch I created, I had proposed having a small stage kind of at the bottom of the slope in the back. That was what Kay sort of re-edited and I think very artfully reinterpreted. And her design, the big drawback to my idea was that we would have had to go back to the ZBA to make a case for putting that structure onto the site, even though it's just a flat platform. And her idea does away with that entirely. We have no need for a second structure with her concept. Her concept, I should also say, does not, is not basing the whole plan around the idea of a music stage. It's simply adding that again as a possible use of the site. And both of us recognize that the site is already being used in that way. In that she described, Steve Howland and his Celtic string jam, has been meeting every Sunday in the more or less every Sunday in the warm weather to have a Sunday, Celtic jam session, which is a very pleasant use of the site. And her design sort of, makes some minor adjustments to kind of facilitate that kind of use of the site. So it was not, she was not going farther than that in saying we're going to hire musicians and program the site or anything like that. It was really just opening a possibility for what in effect is already happening, in that it's a public park and people bring their instruments and make use of the park. So that's really the context there for the way the music idea has evolved as we've seen it in use. The second thing I wanted to say is that I did have a follow-up meeting with Mass Development, which manages the Commonwealth Spaces program, which elected not to fund our proposal for matching funding in the fall, in October, November. They had a follow-up meeting to give us feedback on our proposal. And I basically learned interesting but unfortunate news that that there was basically 3 times as many dollars proposed for that fund this year than there were dollars to hand out. And because Buckland got funded for its pocket park the year before, that pretty much scotched our proposal. So they had pretty much nothing but kind words to say about the proposal itself. They didn't really offer me many changes to make were I to resubmit it. But the kicker was that there's currently no funding in the Commonwealth Spaces Fund this year. So, so that the odds for resubmitting that for funding right now are kind of low. It's possible that there will be funding that will go into that program, but who knows, so right now it's kind of in limbo. So having learned that, the only other public or quasi-public funding source that I know of available to keep the project moving forward and begin to implement the kinds of ideas that Kay put forward is our own newly created Community Preservation Act. And that started this year in July. Our committee just got appointed and up and running. I think they had their first meeting this past week. And so there will be a functioning community preservation committee for Shelburne to begin reviewing proposals this winter So I would like to put together a proposal to present to them to fund the next set of improvements to the pocket park. And I'd like to get yours and Rick's support for that. So I have a little bit of work to do on that, to speak with Dick Hillman, who did the initial grading work on that site, both for Josh and his crew, and then later for us when we graded the front of the park and began building the pavilion. So I'm hoping to get some estimates from him. I've gotten some estimates from Ashfield Stone about stonework they could add to the site, and Kay can give us some numbers on the kinds of ideas that she presented tonight. So that would form the basis of my proposal for Community Preservation Act funding. But that's kind of the next step, as I see it, for actually completing the construction of the pocket park.
Rick?
Definitely, I have an issue with that for sure. I've done a lot of listening, took boot camp for the CPA webinar. A few things. A, I don't think it qualifies because it's not town owned. Any money put in from the CPA has to be permanent. This is a 7-year lease, could end then. I don't believe the money would be allowed by the state. Second, or more importantly, or not more importantly, but equally of note, is that they are just being formed, the committee. This current coming town meeting next May will not have any programs proposed. They're just organizing. The money will be assigned at that time, the first budget, but it'll be the following year presented in May of 2025, where the first proposals would be presented to town meeting. So that's way out. I don't think it's as smooth a process as you may hope it would be. But
Okay.
I suggest the CPA boot camp. I'll send you a link to it if you'd like. It's only an hour, but it'll give you a pretty good idea of what is allowed or isn't allowed.
Great. Well, we can certainly explore those concerns and see whether there's a viable project. That is one of the purposes of the CPA committee, is to review proposals and to provide that kind of feedback to people, to either tell them, no, you can't do this, or here's how you might strengthen your proposal. So that's their job, is to go and tell you how flexible the regulations are and that sort of thing.
I had a question, if I can break in.
Oh, sure, Josh.
Kay kept talking about her students. Is she with the Conway School, or what?
She has her own program. It's called Sewing Solutions. It's a permaculture design training program.
Where is she located?
In the mill over former Lamson Cutlery.
Okay, okay.
But no, she's not part of the Conway School.
Okay.
Did you guys pass along the designs and stuff that, I mean, just because it just seems like it's nice to make sure that they have, all the resources, and no sense in reinventing the wheel. Right.
I gave
Yeah,
I gave them your designs that Josiah created. Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if you also have, Conway School also did designs a few years ago. I think I gave those to you, but if I didn't,
No, I don't have those.
I think it had only confused things.
Okay. Yeah, no, I did share Josiah's work with
Okay.
her.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
hate to have people reinvent the wheel if they don't need to
Yeah.
be.
Sure.
All right, so it sounds like we've got some research to do on funding sources and things of that nature. Is there anything else we need to talk about at this moment with the pocket park?
I could just add that at one point, my partners and I had proposed to build a park that we would build it and then rent it to you guys. And I don't, that's, it seemed like it was an easier thing to get state money. And I'm just throwing, I can't commit any of my partners and without
Okay,
discussing it again, but there was at one point a talking about, we would just design a park, build it, and then present it to you and rent it to you.
all right. No, thank you for bringing that up and reminding us, Josh. Are you happy with the pavilion as it's going in?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing spoons, which is, I play spoons with so I'm looking forward to playing music there as often as I possibly can. Actually, one of my fingers is bent from playing spoons too much.
Goodness,
He's
he's a
actually,
devoted spoon player.
I didn't know until like, halfway through our marriage. I was like, what? You're a spoon player? He's like an amazing spoon player. I'm like, who are you? And what have you done with my husband? He's amazing.
Not only is he a glass blower, he's a spoon player. So I expect an album.
Actually, that's what I would do for a living, except it's harder to make a living playing spoons than you would think. You would think it would be an instant way to make it. But Rick, you're a drummer. You know, you can make a fortune doing that, right?
Yes, absolutely. But I've seen you on video and I agree with your wife. Amazing.
I think we'll leave you at this point if it's all right with you guys, if you're done with talking about the park.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for
Josh.
including us. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And anytime, Josh.
Very
Thanks,
nice to see you.
Katie.
Have a good night.
Happy holidays to you. Okay. So moving on to old business and so the proposed solar array for the highway pole barn roof. The pole barn is finished in terms for the highway use, and they are in the process of utilizing and start filling it. So now we're here to talk about the next phase of the project and to get some panels up on the roof to help provide augment electricity to the town. So Terry has been speaking with going out for an RFP to various providers, Solar Store, PV Squared, other similar folks to come up with a design based on what we have before us and be able to go out to bid, inspect that. Understand, Andrew, that you have your son that's actively involved in that. And I will tell you right now, you are pushing ethics at its limit in regards to pushing him to wanting to be involved in this project. And I don't think it's appropriate that it continues. And I believe that it's pretty getting close to a gross violation. So I'll put it right out there to start.
I've read it as well. I agree with you, Bob. We voted for a process prudently, and I think we should just let it play out the way it was voted for.
So,
Just for clarification, Bob, I have not spoke to any local vendors. The last action of the board was that we work with the FERCog to create an RFP document. Andrea, Andrew, Jeff Bettner, and myself met. She created a draft document, but I believe at the time it was being created in a manner where it was bid specifications rather than a request for proposal.
okay,
We agreed, I believe at our last meeting, that a request for proposal was the most advantageous way to go, in that we wouldn't be tying the hands with a specific system, but we would allow vendors to tell us what they felt was the most advantageous proposal for that roof. So the only thing that I've done since then is reach out to municipalities through my small town administrator network, seeking copies of proposals from municipalities who've done the same. And so I have verbiage from probably 3 or 4 different municipalities as to how they created their document, but they all differ in their approach. So Andrea Woods is retiring. Her farewell party, I believe, is this Thursday. And I'm not sure how to pick this up and keep it moving.
Are you aware if they have a replacement in mind? And usually the FERCog is pretty good at that.
I do believe they have a replacement, but I don't think that's been announced yet.
Yeah.
So a replacement would pick up our requested RFP.
I'm
Presumably.
assuming, yes.
Presume. Okay.
Yes, they haven't signed the document yet because there was question as to the direction we were going to go after that initial meeting. Andrew and I talked about solar consultants. We talked about seeing whether or not an ESCO company was available that's somewhat local, that could just take the whole project and run with it. I've yet to hear back from the Department of Environmental Protection to see whether or not there is another provider aside from the one that's doing the Mohawk project. So.
Yep.
When you're ready, I'd be happy to offer you my perspective on the concerns that you've raised about my conflict of interest with my son.
Sure.
Okay. Just to begin, to clarify, I have not now, nor have I ever put him forward as a potential bidder or contractor with the town. Is that understood?
It was certainly, okay. So noted.
Thank you. And I just want to go on record as saying I do have a conflict of interest here, and that my son is one of the principals of a solar company called Resonant Energy. I do consult with him regularly to educate myself about solar. He did get hired by the town of Buckland for the Buckland Sewer District. Another disclosure, they hired him to write a $200,000 grant that he brought forward and proposed to the town in order to put solar on the sewer district's property. And they then, once they got the grant, they hired him to manage the grant. So he is doing that for the sewer district. So I have to disclose that as another conflict of interest because I am a member of the Shelburne Sewer Commission.
So noted.
But those things were done through public process that I abstained from voting on after making my full disclosures. So I don't feel like I have skated anywhere near an ethics violation, Bob. I've done this all with full transparency and full disclosure.
Okay, I appreciate that, Andrew. Just
the reason that I'm bringing this up is that my son brought to my attention in regard to our project 2 elements that I was not aware of and that I had not considered, that I raised to Terry as things that we should include in our bidding, or we should certainly look into them and consider them. One is that because we appropriated funding for the pole barn and the solar array at the same time, at the same town meeting in 2 adjacent and related proposals, he felt that there was a good case to be made for including the pole barn as part of the mounting structure, which in effect it is, for the solar array. And if we can make that case successfully in the tax forms that we will get at the end of this project, which are still being written by the IRS, in regard to the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is funding these tax credits, we could potentially take a 30% tax credit, not just for the solar array, but also for the pole barn. And since the pole barn cost what, $140,000 now?
120, 140, somewhere in there.
It went substantially over budget. We could potentially get a 30% tax credit on that full amount as well. So that's a new dimension to the project that could potentially bring in another $40,000 in revenue if we can pursue it successfully.
Are we even eligible for tax credits being an exempt?
You have,
Entity?
that's one of the bizarre things about the Inflation Reduction Act is a municipality actually has to file a tax return in order to claim these credits.
Hmm.
And we will be getting those forms at the end of this project. So that's how you get your 30% tax credit on this project. The second piece of the project that he brought to my attention, which is also a little bit of a murky area, is the question of when to install the electric meter that that the solar project will run through and record the power generation for which we earn credits, net metering credits for, and then get to distribute those credits to our various town accounts. If we install a meter before the project is bid and include that in the bid, then whoever we hire to install the project can install the solar behind the meter, quote unquote. And that affects the rate structure for the credits that we earn. And according to my son, if we run them behind the meter, the credits then last longer. The converse is if we include the meter construction in the bid to the installers and they put it together along with the solar project, then we run the credits in front of the meter with a different rate structure, but we get to take the cost of the meter as part of our 30% tax credit. So it's a complex calculation, but according to my son, there are more credits to be earned behind the meter during the 20-year run than there are in front of the meter. So that was another sort of confusing piece that requires solar consultants to fully unravel for us. So in order to get a little bit more perspective on that, I did speak to Andreas Schmidt, who is the principal or the project manager for Select, which is the ESCO that Terry referred to. They're the ones who got hired to put the solar on the Mohawk roof. And because they are part of they're an ESCO essentially with Power Options, which is the company that serves municipalities and schools throughout the state. They've essentially been pre-bid. So Mohawk did not have to go out to bid to hire them. And if they were willing to work with us, we would not have to go out to bid either. And I asked him, well, could you help us unravel these two questions about the metering question and the tax credit question about the pole barn? And he said that he would. And even though this is a very small project for them, because they are engaged with Mohawk, they will be in our neighborhood for the next 20 years. And they also got hired to run the sewer commissions project over in Buckland, which is I believe is a 50 kilowatt project. So they're involved in 2 projects in our neighborhood already. So that would be another possible solution for the fact that FERCog does not really have solar consulting in its portfolio anymore, does not have a grant writer to help us after Andrea retires, or at least there's a transition to be made there. So this would be another potential option, would be to simply contract project with an ESCO and work with Select.
Rick?
Well, your first one had a lot of ifs and your second one had the muddy, I think it was the word you used. You know what bothers me the most is we go to town meeting, we're presented a bill of goods, the town people vote on it, and then it gets changed later, and it's never for the good. Perfect example is actually the CPA. That got pitched to us as, oh, everybody's doing 3%, when it turns out about 30% are. All of the towns around us are doing 1.5 to 1%. And then, oh, it's 100% match of what we raise. Yeah, it's not, hasn't been for years. It's more like 30%. But the townspeople voted on it under what used to be facts, but were no longer facts. So the townspeople have voted on this solar project, and now we want to go in and change it all. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to bring coherent project proposals to the townspeople and let them vote in or out. This is a significant change over what they were pitched, what they voted on, and what we as a board, I believe at our last meeting, approved the process of looking for an RFP and seeing what the people in the local area that know what they're doing put before us. And my understanding is we don't have to accept them. But why would we stop the process that the townspeople asked us to do, that we picked a path for?
Also, I'd like input from the Energy Committee as well, because this is coming from one direction, and I believe we created the Energy Committee for exactly this reason, for helping us sort out these energy questions and how to best go about saving town money and providing a outside perspective rather than just from the board. So we have, we can say we've consulted with the Energy Committee and they looked at it and we've looked at it. So I feel the Energy Committee needs to be more involved in this as well, because they're one of the ones that have been pushing greatly to get solar on top of that roof. And I've been over there in the morning, I've been over there in the afternoon, and it gets a lot of exposure. It's a wonderful spot. So I'd like to continue down our path where we maintain the RFP concept, working with the FERCog, working with the Solar Committee to come up with a really solid and simple solution for the panels. And regardless of this backdoor 30 and percent savings divided by 12% of the overall income of the gross town, filing an income tax report, all that just makes it more complicated. And I'd like to try to follow the keep it simple rule, and just to see where we can come up with they have a lot of expertise in the area from our Energy Committee, and the FERCog can provide a great deal of service. So yeah, I think we're at that area where we need to kind of continue with what was for the okay, I lost it. My brain's
If I may.
I was at the lab today for 3 hours, so excuse me. Oncology.
The RFP, I think, is what you were suggesting we continue with.
Yeah, thank you. Lost it at 3 hours in the chair today, so kind of lost the train of thought. Yeah, thank you.
Bob?
Yeah.
a few comments there. One is I feel like aspersions are being cast about a process that I've been involved in. And Rick, I think you're kind of intimating that I've lied to the public. And
No, no.
I take great exception to that. The facts that you mentioned, the facts that you mentioned are ones that were clearly presented in many public hearings that we held during the process of passing the CPA law in Shelburne. And I don't believe that we misrepresented that to the voters. And we did not, nor did we represent it in the way that you characterized it. To go further, when you say that I am changing the rules on how we manage the solar process, consider this. When we approved at that same meeting a pole barn for a fixed amount of money, we found that that amount of money was not sufficient. Should we then have said, oh, we don't want to lie to the voters or misrepresent what their intention was. Let's just stop here and not do the project. But that's not what we did. We actually appropriated additional money to complete that project.
The materials were on.
And what I am describing here, yes, there are definitely ifs and questions and unknowns about a process that is still unfolding. The very economics that are behind this solar project are being defined by the IRS with a new law that was passed by the Biden administration called the Inflation Reduction Act. That is what is generating the economics of this solar proposal. So
Are you
if
suggesting pause it and wait till we find out the facts?
you could do that. I'm not suggesting we do that. I think the solar credit, the 30% credit that we can take on the project that we build is there. That's a big part of the economics of this project. If you decide that's too complicated for you and you don't want to file that paperwork, you're leaving 30% of the project on the table. What I'm suggesting is
that was if it qualified. I thought you used the word.
No, we're going to get that 30% on the panels that we put on the roof.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the 30 on the building.
That's right. That's the second part of it, which if we're going to fill out the forms for the panels, we could fill out the forms for the building too. But we might need a little bit of consulting to see how that should play. So yes, there's a speculative element to that, but I think it's worth pursuing because there's a potential $40,000 on the table there that, given that we spent an additional $40,000 to make that pole barn go, we might want to try to claw it back. So I'm not pulling one over on the voters. I'm trying to get good money for the voters for this project and make the economics work in their favor even further than they already do.
Oh, if you're right, and that was 40,000 more, how much does the consultant cost? 20?
I don't think it will cost $20,000 to make these things happen. In fact, the folks from Select have said that they'd be willing to help us with that project.
I'd say come back with more of those details because right now it's a lot of conjecture. So
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
I'm willing to listen.
Okay.
That's where I'm at is come back with actual numbers and proposals as we continue down working with the FRCOG. That's where I'm at.
The FRCOG doesn't put us in a pigeonhole at all.
The FRCOG will help us put out an RFP and run the bid. That's what they signed up for. But they're not signing up to help us with the back end of this project.
I understand.
And that's why we have an energy committee.
Well, okay, if there are people on the energy committee who can run the back end of this project, that would be great.
That's why we need to consult with them.
Okay, well, why don't we bring them into the next meeting then, and we'll consult with them.
So I'm not opposed with bringing them in and asking for their opinions and such. Terry, you've been sitting on the sideline listening. Do you have anything to say?
A couple of the municipalities that responded today have given me the names of people who were instrumental in helping them. Again, I'm not sure if the assistance had any relation to what Andrew's speaking of. I know at one point, Andrew, you mentioned that this may require legal assistance that specializes in solar credits. And I think, I don't know, I just wonder how you weigh the benefit versus the expense and the potential time delay. When I talked to the FERCog last week, they thought going this route would delay the actual installation a year. And that will then increase the cost of materials. I just feel like we're kind of in quicksand.
Why is it going to delay it for a year?
They felt working with a consultant would delay the actual going out for proposals, would delay it just by the time we got someone on board to help us out, to weigh all the options.
Well, the other approach is to just direct contract it with Select, since not go out to bid and get them to do the whole ball of wax for us.
Yes,
Bing,
and
bang, boom.
the downside of that is that originally we wanted a local vendor who would service and show up when there was a problem. I thought we had a really good experience with a vendor we worked with on the salt shed roof that was local.
Well, some of the concerns that we've already raised about our local vendors is that some of them are retiring. So having a local vendor who either one of them has only been in business for a year and the other is about to retire, that's 2 of our 4 or 5 local vendors. The third being probably the highest price one. And Select is actually on board with 2 projects locally already, and has 20 maintenance people that they work with. So I think there's a good case to be made there.
Is Mohawk's system up and running?
No, I talked with Andreas at length about that, and they expect that to be running in February. They had a kind of duke out with Eversource about where to locate the meter, and Eversource wanted, the meter is currently inside the building, and Eversource wants it on the outside. And after having signed off on the whole project, their engineer sort of pulled it back for that reason, and held it up. And they kind of went to the mat with him and said, you basically can't do this, and so they wound up working it out as a kind of half and halvesy deal. So Eversource is going to pay for half of the electrical work needed to do it, and Select is going to pay for the other half, and they're getting it worked out. So he's expecting it'll start up in February.
Okay, so we'll revisit this topic back next year and move forward if that's all right.
Great.
All right, any other old business? Moving.
I have one question on old business, Bob, and that's the ARPA money. I understand that the funds need to be obligated or spent by December 31st. And we do have a balance that is not, in my understanding, currently obligated or spent.
That's 2024 is the deadline to obligate that money.
It is, so we have
Yes.
time. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't want to miss it and not have it get pushed to the pocket park, which is where I think we agreed that it would go. We just didn't have an actual final number. So I didn't want to get that not procedural matter to have slip through us. So good.
Totally.
We've got another. Awesome. Good.
Good
Yeah, I
catch.
think just a note on that, I think you may have seen the emails with the tech school, but the Pocket Park construction, as you can see, is moving toward conclusion. They are working on the final sort of cladding materials. Terry, I believe we're pretty close to the budget that we agreed to with them. Where do we stand on that?
I haven't received, all I'm getting to date are bills where they've charged at Hampshire Lumber, so I have no idea of what the big picture looks like. We're just paying bills as they create them through local hardware and lumber yards. But
we
we're
did,
not, we haven't received totals yet.
okay, but we did agree to a general ballpark, didn't we, of what we were,
Originally, the ballpark figure, I think, was close to 13,000. I think now we are close to 14 in materials.
so we're more or less on track with
Yes.
where we were. Okay. No, I just wanted to give Bob and Rick an update on that we're in the ballpark that we arranged with the tech school.
Great.
Excellent. All right, any other old business? Moving on to new business, we have the proposed flag policy for consideration. This is something that's come to light recently over displaying, asking that the town display flags on various groups' behalf. And some of them are perhaps some groups we do not want to support that have various political agendas such as genocide or whatever that could be behind things. And Terry did a search and came up with some good research. And would you like to present that, Terry?
Actually, I did do research involving other communities that had adopted flag policies in recent weeks, but Donna McNichol suggested that her local towns use the policy that's before you this evening. It's relatively simple and to the point.
No, that's good. Have you had
With-
both the opportunity to read it?
I have,
I have, Bob, I have a few questions and comments about it.
Okay,
I didn't have any objection to the part about the flags. The part that I have a question and a comment about is where it verges into talking about things being posted on public buildings. And I just wanted to point out to the two of you that we currently lease half of our public building, Memorial Hall, to the Memorial Hall Association, which has maintained marquee boxes on the outside of our building for the last 28 years. And those marquee boxes contain information about the programming in Memorial Hall, which is selected by Memorial Hall and its renters. And from my point of view, they should continue to have the ability to program the hall as they see fit, as the lessors of the hall. So I don't think that's an appropriate area for the town to have, sort of public censoring of. The other,
So should we amend section 2.4 to include least, have that be an exception?
I would strongly advocate for that. The second sort of gray area that's sort of related to that, but not entirely, is the cable that runs across the street at Memorial Hall, half of which is attached to our town building and which promotes various events in town, some of which were in Memorial Hall, some of which are just, moonlight magic or other stuff that people string banners across the street about. Because that cable is attached to the building, that is potentially a flag governed by this policy. So I bring that to your attention as well.
both valid points. Rick, your thoughts on the amendment?
Yeah, I think I don't have a problem with amending 2.4 to exclude the marquee with perhaps wording to promote. No, I think your suggestion is fine for that. The cable across, I think 2.6 addresses that in that it not intended to serve as a forum for free expression or erection on or attachment of banners and signs. Currently, who gives approval to put a banner across there like is done for the Bridge of Flowers road race? They generally have one. Who approves what goes on that cable right now?
A representative of the Visitors Information Center and a man who works at Keystone Market, as far as I know.
It's
It's
been a
not
pretty
town,
ad hoc
it-
process, yeah.
It used to be the Greater Shelburne Falls Area Business Association would charge a fee to put those banners up. I think it's being done informally. In fact, the banner for Moonlight Magic really should be coming down.
I had a banner made for Pothole Pictures many, many years ago that I put up there occasionally, but I've stopped doing that because it's too much work.
Mm,
I think the concern is, why this is before us is legitimate for sure. I think we all want the same thing here. But I agree, it can be a slippery slope on some of the fine details. If it's abused, I would assume we, as the select board, could ask the cable to be removed from our building and let it ride until something stupid happens.
I'm in that camp myself. I'm in the if it ain't broke, don't fix it world.
I think that's all fair. So where would we like to go with this?
I think as long as we clarify the marquee box issue, I'm okay with the rest of it.
okay,
Okay,
I'll
You
bring
want-
it back at the next meeting. Do you want?
no, yeah, I would say that'd be good.
Yes.
All right. Good draft guide for boards, committees, and commissions.
This came up when Andrea Donlin from the FERCog was hosting her first meeting with Community Preservation Committee members. She shared with me a similar guide that the town of Buckland uses when onboarding new boards and committees and commission members, and suggested that it would be helpful for Shelburne to do the same. So with Rick's help, I went through and did the editing and just thought I would put it out there to see whether the board felt it had any value.
My comment would be that even though it was decades ago that I spent 5 years on the planning board, my 7 or 8 months that I spent on the planning board before coming on to the select board, I would have loved to have this document at the start of my filling in the unexpired term on the planning board or this select board seat. I think it's full of great information. I actually mentioned it to one new committee chairman who could use some help, and I didn't share it with them until it was an official document. But I don't see anything in here but good help to newcomers to volunteering to give back to the town. It's my 2 cents.
Bob,
Yep,
just a question, Terry, is this this is just clarifying MGL or putting it all in writing for us, or
Yeah,
this-
it's putting it all in writing. It's everything from postings, minute taking, the steps you take to become sworn in, ethics test.
This is not
reappointment.
creating Shelburne specific new language for us. This is just putting in writing what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Yes,
Okay. It looks very, I thought it was informative. It looked all helpful to me. I don't see, is there something we need to do with it? Do we need to approve it in some way?
well, if you wanted to approve it as a useful tool to be given to all our town boards, then I would ask that you approve it. And it would become an official document. I'd also post it on the website and,
Right,
yeah,
but we're not legislating anything here. We're just approving regs that already exist. Right?
yes, just a useful guide. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Right, no, I just wanted to be clear on that, so that it's just getting all this language in one place for people.
Yes,
And condensed too, rather than have to go search out all these different factors, you get pretty good little overview, kind of a primer.
Right, yeah, no, I think it looked very helpful to me. I think it's a great document. And
Okay.
I would move that we accept it and distribute it to our boards and committees.
I would second that.
Motion's been made in a second that we accept the guide for boards and committees and commissions. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter a vote. All those in favor, Andrew,
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself as I, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Shelburne Falls Brew Pub. Extended hours on New Year's Eve. They think that they'd like to stay open until actual New Year's Eve and midnight to celebrate the new year. Presently, their hours don't go to that on their licenses when they're asking for an extension. Rick?
I did double check as the liaison with the police chief, and he's totally fine with this. This
All right.
extension case.
Any other thoughts?
Fine with it.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and sent to extend the hours for the Shelburne Falls Brew and Pub on New Year's Eve. All those in favor, Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself as I, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to FRCOG accounting program updates for FY25. Terry?
there's two things here, Bob. Just to begin the discussion about budgetary guidelines. Don't have to decide anything tonight, but it would be helpful to start thinking about that so I can get the materials out to various departments. I would recommend that we continue to seek operating budgets as we have in the past, based on actual cost, anticipated costs. And then salary adjustments is entirely up to the board.
Okay, so what about the accounting program?
So we want to just pass over the budget for now and come back to it at another meeting. These are two separate topics.
Okay, so let's pass over the accounting program then.
Well, no, she wants to just take them one at a time, Bob.
Okay, whatever. Again.
So salary adjustments for the coming year.
Yeah.
You guys can think about it, or we can postpone it to another meeting.
I'm comfortable with 4%.
Rick?
I am as well.
Okay, 4% is fine by me.
Thank you.
You need a motion?
It would be helpful, yes.
I
moved.
would make. Andrew?
I'll second it or move it, whatever you prefer.
Motion's been made and seconded. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Hi.
myself as I, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And then budgetary guidelines.
That's what we've just completed.
Okay,
And so now we're moving on to the FERCog's accounting program.
All right.
Not much good news here. Traditionally, member towns who participate in the FERCog's accounting program has paid a shared software fee of $720 each. The software company is now requiring all towns to get an individual license, and the cost for that and the one-time conversion fee is going to go from $720 to $13,258 in this coming year. The annual fee moving forward for a 3-year period will be close to $9,583. The towns that are participating in the accountant program have met at least on 3 occasions. I've had several conversations with a software company asking if they could do better, just because the disparity between what we were once paying and what they're seeking now is just crazy, but there's no wiggle room. And in addition, we all get the strong sense that Bob Dean would like to move away from the accounting program altogether. In fact, in Buckland, as a member of their finance committee, he encouraged them to move away. And now Buckland is negotiating a contract with a FERCog accountant to be shared between Buckland and Conway. And I'm in the process of having discussion with the town of Whately, who currently shares our accountant, to see if we can come up with a similar agreement whereby one town would hire the accountant and the second town would share 10 hours of those services to make a part-time employee 20-hour a week shared by 2 towns.
Do you know why Bob is not keen on maintaining the accounting program?
I think staffing has been really difficult. They have tried for years through a program at GCC to offer municipal accounting because it is somewhat specialized. But they've always had problems finding qualified people. Shelburne is fortunate in that we have an incredible woman serving in that role, and she does it all in approximately 10 hours a week. Other towns have both an accountant and a data entry person. I just think it's a lot of work on their end. I've asked, originally Bob had said that any one of us who wanted to stay in the program could stay in the program, but I feel like all the towns are feeling like it may buy us a year, we may as well take the leap now. So I'm not sure what kind of a savings it will be. Bob did say that in our current assessments, there's overhead factored in so that there would be a savings there, but I don't know what the actual numbers will be.
And do you have a sense that this woman that we might share with Whately might stick around for a while, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, she is. She's not, she's very much interested in staying with the 2 towns that she currently works in.
That's
It's just
good.
a matter of the FERCog offers this individual benefits, being that it's 20 hours and mileage. So it would be a matter of negotiating something that was fair and affordable between the 2 towns.
So she's currently being provided us through the FERCog's arrangement,
Yes,
and we would just direct contract between us and Whately with her then.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and yeah, Bob said it was a perfect time to start looking at this arrangement because contracts were coming to an end at the end of this fiscal year.
So what do you need from us?
At the moment, both the town administrator from Whately and myself are agreed we would present this concept to the town. to see if the board were supportive of us looking into it. We're also both seeking intermunicipal agreements that might be a fair way of brokering this arrangement. So I guess at this point, it's just exploratory, but it's looking like this will probably be what I'll be presenting at budget time. And it would
Sounds-
be a decision of each select board to go this route.
I'm in favor. I think if you've got a good person, we should try to hang on to her.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. So do we need to act immediately on this? Or,
No, it's like I said, it's still very much exploratory. The other unfortunate part of every town having an individual license is that the way it currently stands, each accountant in the FERCog system can log in to the FERCog's remote server. Now this software will be on our town server, on Whately's town server, on Buckland's, Conway's. So each accountant won't have the flexibility. They'll have to have access to each server where the town specific software is hosted. So it's not as flexible, but we'll make it work.
all right, well,
work.
I would say carry on the research and get back to us when it's at a point where we can act on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business?
I just will mention today in the heavy rain, I have a report of the Cowell Gym roof leaking, which is the first, I can't even remember. It's leaking in the gymnasium along the north wall. The senior walkers were in there this morning and placed a receptacle where the water was leaking. John Walsh was in there later in the day and said there were water leaking through this foundation, which is also quite surprising because we did a lot of drainage
A lot of
work
drainage
years
work.
ago on that building.
Yeah, a lot
I
of it.
think the water table is just so high. In one area, John said it looked like it was coming in where an old air conditioner may have been housed and just boarded up. And then in the fuel tank room, there are a couple holes in the wall that was leaking through there. So when things settle a little bit in the highway, I'll have Mark check the foundation. I'll also plan on looking at the warranty on the Cowell Gym roof because I'm quite sure that rubber membrane is still under warranty.
I believe so, yeah.
The other thing that Mark and I are working on collectively is that the legs on the two 275 gallon oil tanks are rusting off. Some of the tanks have only 3 legs. So we've had 2 vendors in looking at the tanks. They'd have to be pumped and removed. And then we would replace the 2 tanks with 1 smaller tank. Because hopefully oil will just be a backup and maybe someday a memory if the heat pump system works out. But it just seems like Cowell Gym is kind of cyclical in its problems and there's a cloud over it right now.
Does appear that way.
Have you ever, Terry, have we ever explored what the cost benefit would be of building pitched roofs on Memorial Hall and Cowell Gym? You know,
No.
like because I could envision when those roofs reach their rated lifetime and need replacing, that would be something to explore, you know, just put a pitched roof up there. I don't know, I just feel leery of rubber roofs. I've never been a fan of them.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes it's a matter of the roof drains being clogged. I have no idea. It used to be the highway crew would go up and check the roof drains. I don't know that that's happened just because it seems like it's been one thing after another with weather-related problems and road damage. So someday I would love to have access to a maintenance person and not necessarily Mark and myself and whomever else we can get a hold of to just do routine inspections of all the buildings, because it just seems like there are a lot of needs that aren't being met.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of deferred maintenance at the Cal Gym.
Mhm. And even town hall, I mean, we pick up on it when a problem arises rather than routinely staying on top of it all.
Yeah,
So that's it.
All right, thank you. So our next meetings are January 1st, and January 15th, both are holidays. So puts us way to the end of January before we meet again. And is there something we want to consider looking into for scheduling a non-holiday meeting?
what if we just meet on the 2nd and the 16th on those 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would have to check with the other boards to see who else meets on a Tuesday to see if Zoom is available.
Or the 3rd and the 17th? Actually, Wednesday is better for me.
Not
Or-
necessarily for me.
Or Thursday, the 4th and the 18th.
Those have potential.
That's actually probably the best one for me. It's the 4th and the 18th.
I will not be available on the 4th, but you can meet without me.
Or we could just meet on the 18th and then go back to our regular schedule.
What's the difference between the 18th and the 22nd?
Oh,
On business day.
yeah.
Why not just go to the 22nd if you're gonna do that? But I'm good with, every day is Saturday for me, so.
How would you feel about the 8th and the 22nd, or would that really mess things up?
No, shouldn't.
Oh, the 8th to 22nd and then go back to the 29th to get back on
Yeah.
our regular schedule?
Yeah. If we
That's
don't have a need to meet, we could always cancel one of them.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Good. So I will box out the 8th, the 22nd, and the 29th. 5:30, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So any other business to come before this board? Anyone care to public comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Right?
Bye.
All right. Have a good night, folks. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good
Night.
night.